Today, Geralt is chugging every potion in his inventory as we put together a pretty unkillable alchemy Euphoria build that uses some light attacks and some critical hit damage to kill monsters. We're using bombs, signs, combat, and drinking. Lots and lots of drinking. Let's go. Let me know in the comments what other builds you would like. I know there's a lot of you out there that are looking for like a sign sword combo build, and it's coming, guys. Just wait, it's coming. All right, so let's talk about this Euphoria build. Now, I think we all know, or most of us that have played the game previously are aware that Euphoria's effectiveness got nerfed with the next gen update and the combat rebalance. I was never a Euphoria stan anyway, so to be honest, it didn't really bother me that much, but I know that a lot of people out there love using Euphoria and these alchemy kind of builds, so I wanted to put something together, and I've spent probably longer trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this build and tinkering with different things than I typically would, because I know a lot of people love Euphoria and it's not stupid OP anymore, and so you kind of have to figure out other ways to maximize your damage output, which I think I've been able to do. Firstly, let's talk about what Euphoria is for those that don't know. So in the Blood and Wine DLC, you get this extra mutation and these extra combat skill slots, which is part of that DLC. There's a quest that you do to unlock these, and Euphoria is one of those mutations that you can get. It's one of the end mutations that you get. So what this does is each point of toxicity increases damage dealt by swords and sign intensity by 0.75% up to a maximum of whatever, and that maximum number is based on your maximum toxicity. So whatever your max toxicity is, that is what that top percentage number is. So essentially, whenever we're chugging a lot of potions, and the higher that our toxicity is, the more damage increase we get from our swords and sign intensity. And I'm leaning into the swords side of things with this build rather than the sign intensity, though you could go the other route if you wanted to. I'm alleviating a lot of that overall damage loss and from some of those rebalancing with a couple of things. Firstly, we're really focusing a lot on critical hit chance and critical hit damage via the cat school technique, as well as wearing the Manticore set, which we are. We've turned that into light armor, which gives us that extra critical hit chance. And this whole set, the Manticore set does give a lot of critical hit chance damage, so it helps with leaning into those things as well. And we'll talk about skills and other ways we're doing it in a little bit. I'm also using Invigoration on my silver sword. When vitality is at maximum, any vitality regen turns into added damage up to 50% on the next strike. And we're using a lot of ways of buffing our vitality regen in this build, so then that will further increase your damage. And for the most part, you're going to be at max vitality in most encounters unless you make mistakes. And because we have such a high vitality regen, you'll be able to get that back quickly anyway, even if you do, so it doesn't matter too much. And I'm also using a lot of blade oils as well as some perks to buff blade oils as well, so we're getting that extra X percentage bonus from that specific enemy type when we're using them. So really that all comes together to give you a solid amount of fast attack damage while also buffing yourself with Euphoria, being able to use signs. And just because we're an alchemy kind of build, you will get bonuses to your bomb damage as well, so you want to incorporate bombs into this build. So the armor and weapons we've already roughly kind of touched on, but we are using the full Manticore set here. Primarily I'm using the full set for the second Witcher gear buff, which adds an extra charge to all of your alchemical creations, because you won't really want to meditate with this build. We'll talk about that why in a little bit, but you want to avoid that as much as possible. So you really want that extra charge, and the Manticore set is really good. Now I'm putting the vitality regen just runes into the general armor, and then the light armor rune, which we already touched on in the build summary section, so that all of my gear really is treated as light armor for the fast attack bonuses we get from that. And then on the weapons, I'm using that Invigoration as well as the dumplings perk, so that all food regen has a 400% bonus on it, so we get extra vitality regen from food, which then further increases our damage because of Invigoration on the silver sword. Let's break down the skills. In the combat skills, there is one main skill, and that is Precise Blows, which increases the chance of landing a fast attack critical hit by 12% and critical hit damage by 75%. That is the main skill you want in combat. Now, the muscle memory is also relatively important if you can afford it in your skill slots. I'll talk about why I'm not necessarily using it all the time in this build in a little bit. We're not using any sign skills here. We're going straight into the alchemy line to pick up heightened tolerance to increase potion overdose threshold, as well as refreshment. So each potion does imbibe heals 30% of maximum vitality. So essentially any potion will just act as if it's a heal. It'll just give you health back. So you want to have this, and it's a great way to just to get health in this build, so you don't have to use, the White Rafford potion or even Swallow, but Swallow does have some other benefits as well. We're also using side effects here. So imbibing a potion gives a 100% chance of activating effects of another randomly selected potion, just additional effects, can't go wrong there. Poison blades, so oil applied to blades gives a 15% chance of poisoning the target on each hit. The chance is greater the higher level of the oil, and obviously we want to be leveling up our oils, because it not only gives you a higher amount of attack damage bonus to that type, but it'll also increase your chance of poisoning the target, which does actually happen. You will trigger this pretty often, I have found. And we're also using fixation, so blade oils don't wear off, and you can have up to 3 blade oils on gear. This is a personal preference. Now, this is what I would drop and then run muscle memory instead for that extra attack like speed. But just personally, like my own little gripe thing with alchemy builds is you spend so much time on your inventories, like, you know, selecting which potions you're going to use and applying oils and changing out your bombs and etc, etc. I kind of just don't want to do that. So that's why I'm running this. But you can drop this and absolutely run muscle memory for extra damage increase. Just combine it with the red mutagens that we're wearing. No issues with that whatsoever. All right, moving on. We'll go through these pretty quick. We're using acquired tolerance as well as the tissue transmutation just to increase some of the effectiveness of our potion. Synergy, which we've talked about in other videos, really great perk to use. Adaption extends the duration of all mutation decoctions by 100%. Endure pain increases your max vitality by 30% when toxicity extends the safe threshold, which it practically always will. And killing spree, if toxicity is above 0, which it always is, each opponent killed increases the critical hit chance by 30% for the duration of that fight. So essentially, you're going to have like basically maximum critical hit chance as you get further into fights and never stop critical hitting. So it's perfect to have. Cat school techniques, which we've already talked about, to increase light armor in chances of critical hit damage as well as fast attack damage. I'm also using gourmet to increase the food and drink duration to 20 minutes so I don't have to use food and drink all of the time. And metabolic control to extend my maximum toxicity by 30 points, which further extends the maximum value of Euphoria. So that's essentially all the skills, but it doesn't really end there with this build because bombs, potions, and decoctions are so critical to really how this build works. So speaking of bombs, you can really use any kind of bomb that you like, really. Like there's no, you know, use this bomb for this, whatever. Now, obviously you want to check the bestiary and use bombs that are most effective against targets, but bombs will deal insane amount of damage because we have all of the passive bonuses because of all these alchemy perks. Now you could lean into bombs further if you wanted to pick up the bomb skills. A couple of standouts that are worth mentioning. Grape shot is just perfect to deal like just a amount of damage to a certain area in front of you. Probably my favorite though is dancing star, which provides a like fire explosion. It'll also stay in that area and set anything on fire that's in that area. It's a great way to clear out enemies and just like prevent them from doing things, because when they're like worried about the fire, they don't actually attack you. Now for potions and decoctions, potions really you can just use anything. Like Thunderbolt is great for increasing your attack power, but Swallow will also increase your attack power. It doesn't necessarily do it just because it is increasing your vitality regen, but when your health is at maximum, your vitality regen then gets converted into damage. So essentially it acts as a damage increase for this build as well. Decoctions are the main focus, and you'll have 3 or 4 of these active basically at all times. That you could go have a look through the list and find ones that you prefer to use, and you absolutely can use different ones here, but these are the main ones that you'll kind of tinker with depending on the situation. Water Hag, damage dealt is increased when vitality is at maximum, which it always is going to be at maximum more or less. Ekimora Decoction, damage dealt to foes regenerates vitality, so this will help you stay at that maximum vitality range as well. Night Wraith is also really good, so Geralt's maximum vitality is increased with each foe killed, lasts until you fast travel or meditate, one of the reasons we don't want to meditate. Grave Hag, each foe slain accelerates vitality regen for the duration of the fight, further increasing your damage. You've also got other things like the Acarus Decoction, the Basilisk, Echidna. There's tons of different decoctions that you could really tinker with and find what works for you, but those are the main ones that you'll probably be using. It's also worth talking about the Manticore set here as well. So you can't get the Manticore set until Blood and Wine, and it's only available in like its Grandmaster tier. Until that point, I would probably wear the Feline set, the Cat set, because it gives you those fast attack bonuses and fits neatly into this build until you can get to that point. But you could wear like say the Bear set and turn it into light armor if you wish, but I would probably just go the Cat set for that. Some quick build tips here. First, start with the combat skills when you are like in the leveling process. Get muscle memory and precise blows, and then move into the alchemy line, because you're really going to need that extra damage in the early stages of the game as well. Like all this footage is in Deathmarch, and you can see that even with all of the bonuses that we're getting plus Euphoria, etc., we're still not doing as much damage as say my combat build was. So now I mentioned earlier you don't want to meditate, and you might think that's a little weird, and just it's a little bit of personal preference, I guess. Like when you meditate, your bombs, your potions, everything will be refilled, which obviously you will do occasionally because you'll need to have them back because they're so critical for this build. But the trade-off here is that you will have to rebuff again, so you have to go in and apply all of your decoctions, all that kind of stuff, and put them back on, which it's not a huge big deal, but I just personally find it tedious having to do that kind of stuff. So you know, you will need to meditate occasionally, like don't get me wrong, but I just prefer not to do it as much possible, plus the decoction that you get that gives you bonuses to your max vitality if you don't meditate. So there's plenty of bonuses to avoid it, essentially. That is everything for this build today. Let me know in the comments what you think of this build and your kind of Euphoria variant that you've made after the combat rebalance. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Noza, and I hope you have a great day.